So the weather has changed, and unless you're somewhere that's really nice and warm and sunny, chances are that to play football, you either go on artificial grass or you play on a pitch that looks like this, which is soft and wet and muddy. And unless you have the right gear, that can be a little bit of an experience. So I'm gonna help you with that, because in today's video, I'm gonna tell you what I think are the top 5 best SG soft ground boots in late 2024 and early 2025. Let's go. Mud doesn't matter. But Jay, why do you need SG boots? I'm gonna get to the list in a little bit, but if you've ever tried playing with an FG boot on a regular grass pitch, you'll get a perfectly good experience in terms of traction. But the thing is that as the pitches become softer and more wet and muddy, the top layer of soil is a little bit softer, meaning that, and you probably tried the feeling, when you accelerate and you do these drastic changes of direction, all the movements just feel slippery, as if you don't have enough grip underneath the boot to really push off powerfully. You're just gonna, right? So the idea with soft ground studs is initially to have fewer studs that are also longer, meaning that you put more pressure on each stud. And that means that you can penetrate the ground deeper through that softer top part of the ground and getting deeper into where the ground is a little bit firmer. When you have firmer ground, there's firmer hold around the stud, and you can basically transfer energy to the ground better, get more traction. Now also, in the old days, you only had 6 soft ground studs, and that also meant that you had less mud clogging up under the boot. But with these modern FG, SG hybrid outsoles, it's still kind of a problem. For some of them, at least. But more on that later. And to start off the list, I've brought the Adidas Copa Glow 2 SG, which is just a really solid but also budget-friendly option. Now what you get here on top is this really soft and supple calf leather upper that is a lot better and a lot more comfortable than the price suggests. And then the feeling underfoot is actually also pretty solid. You get a good stable midfoot here and actually great traction from the outsole and the configuration here. And I would say it just represents a lot of value for money. Is it, right up there with the elites? Not necessarily, but if you're only looking to get an SG pair of boots that you only need like a couple of times per season, it's a really, really solid and very comfortable option. Again, yes, there could be some improvements, but for €100 with some stud tips that are really durable, you can remove them, all that stuff, it's just good value for money. And then at the other range of the price scale, there is the Mizuno Alpha Japan SG, which I brought in for mainly 2 reasons. And the first is that the SG outsole, which as you can see it shares with the Morelia Neo, is pretty good. It's rather solid. The metal studs are absolutely fine, give good traction in the ground. But for me, maybe the size and the width of the FG studs, the plastic studs, they are a little bit too long and they're a little bit too big to really allow for proper, weight coming onto the metal studs. So I wouldn't call it best in class, but I haven't had any major issues with traction on, I think, most SG pitches I've played at. But the second reason is that for me, the Alpha has some of the best lockdown you can find on the market right now. Meaning that when you finally plant those studs into a firmer ground deep down in the pitch, the ability to securely lock your foot in and give you the sensation that you transfer energy from the foot to the boot and down into the studs makes it feel a little bit more effective and responsive. And on a soft pitch, it just feels a little bit better. And yes, it is very expensive. But for me, the Alpha is also one of the best fitting boots you can find out there for slim feet and wide feet and anything in between. And it's also right now on sale at Unisport. So you get the best for a little less. Win. And then in third place, I have brought the Puma Ultra Ultimate SG, which is just in because it's aggressive. I mean, these studs are long. And that means that you have a really easy penetration off the ground. They go really deep. And that means that they just have this very effective, super, really grounded feel as you put them in and try to push off. What surprised me was that these plastic studs that are basically there from the FG boot, they're bladed and they actually work a lot better in giving you that stability and that kind of aggressive bite whenever you put pressure on them as well. And they don't really limit the pressure distribution onto the metal studs as well. Also, it's really snappy, which is good, because while the ground might be soft and not that easy to transfer energy to, at least the boot is responsive and it has good lockdown. So really solid, and it just gives you the feeling of that classic no-nonsense SG plate with a modern twist. And I'm here for it. And then in second place, there is more of the no-nonsensery with the Adidas Predator Elite FT SG, which I would say is just one of those boots that you would naturally associate with an SG boot. So you have these long, pointy studs that could really kill a man, and of course also the fold-over tongue. I mean, it just works, right? And yes, it actually does. It's a really effective SG outsole because the studs just do their jobs with, really penetrating the ground, especially as I talked about, if the first centimeter or so is soft, but then as you get deeper, it firms up a little bit. It's very nice, and you can actually feel each stud really giving you that traction when you put your foot down and want to push off in the ground. Of course, if you decide to really pull the tongue far down, like you should on a Predator, and not use the top lace hole, that big opening can be a little bit of an issue when it comes to lockdown, but if you don't like that, well, just use the top lace hole. Of course, also, the F50 and the Copa Pure 2 are comparable to this. They also have really nice long studs, but I just took the Preds because they have the vibes for SG boots. I like that. So, really effective. But before we get to number one, I also have an honorable shout out to the New Balance Tequila V4 Pro Low SG. That's a long name, but it is a very decent option too, because I really like the boot itself on the upper, and the plate is solid. The reason it's not on the list is that maybe these support studs, again, like on the Mizunos, they're a bit too big to really allow the metal studs to fully shine, but not bad. And then there is the Nike Premier 3 anti-clog, which is a very nice alternative to the more expensive Elite anti-clog options. And if you want anti-clog and that no mud sticking thing, well, it's nice to get for €100. Especially, again, if you only need an SG boot for a few matches a season, well, this is a really good, solid option. Just saying. But for me, what is a little bit better, and probably my go-to options, are the Nike SG options, specifically the anti-clog boot, but I've also brought the SG Pro option as it's a nice little alternative. Because personally, I would probably go with the anti-clog outsole, which is this treatment of the outsole that means that when you touch that soft, muddy, wet pitch, it absorbs some of the water, meaning that the treatment all of a sudden becomes lubricious and really slippery, meaning that the mud doesn't really stick and clog up the outsole. So that's really nice. On the other hand, it is a little bit thicker and slightly heavier, 7 to 10 grams heavier than the SG Pro outsole, which is basically the standard thickness of FG outsole, but with 6 of the studs that have been replaced with these metal screw-in SG studs. And it really depends on what kind of feeling you want. This feels more like an FG boot, but with more aggressive traction. And the cool thing is that you can also take and replace these studs. You can buy the replacement studs from Nike, meaning that instead of going with 11 millimeters in the front and 13 in the back, you can go 13 in the front and 15 millimeters in the back. And it becomes really, really, really aggressive and almost borderline a weapon. But yeah, for those really, really hardcore muddy pitches, that's also a great option. For me though, I just like anti-clog because it works really well. Mud doesn't clog up the boot, it's super easy to clean, and I don't have to worry about tightening the studs. And yes, I can't replace them either, but because you have a really, really solid and durable stud tip, I haven't really had to replace them anyway. So yeah, that's probably my choice, but both are great. But honestly, guys, the most important thing when you play on a soft, muddy pitch is that you have an SG boot in the first place. And it could be any of them on the list. Of course, again, if you only play on a pitch like this a couple of times a season or maybe a year, just get the cheaper one. However, if you play on this often and it's just really bad where you live, it's nice to have those more premium experiences. But no matter which one you want, you can buy all of the boots on the list in the link to Unisport right over there. Of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet with the notifications on, do that. And then don't forget to tell me which SG boot you would choose in the comment section right down below. And finally, if you like learning skills, well, there's a playlist right down there for you to keep watching. And with those words, I've got some boot cleaning to do. Signing off. Cheerio.